30s or something. So I'm ready for spring, but I'm sure Sal's loving. Look, Sal's got a sweatshirt on today. That tells you how cold it is. All right, so our announcements for today, Open Door is Tuesday evening at 7 o'clock. We're thinking we'll be okay, so we will be in person here at 7 o'clock on Tuesday evening for Open Door. Today after church will be the meeting of the Bull Elephants downstairs for the men. That's going to happen the second and fourth Sundays of each month. So if your kids stay for that, that would be great. Just kind of growing our men in the church a little bit with some leadership and whatnot. So please plan to stay for that. And then our youth group is going to meet Saturday for book study. The time may be adjusted, so if you have questions or have people that want to get connected there, please touch base with Randy and Jess, and they can confirm a time for that on Saturday. So, but youth will happen Saturday. Youth group's going to be the first and third Saturdays of each month. The first one will always be a book study, and then the third one is going to be either a service project or like a fun time, that kind of thing. So February 15th is going to be a service day for them. So if you have questions, again, on that, touch base with Randy and Jess on that. But that's it.
Please stand. Let's worship.
Praise the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship Him.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. All right, let's pray. Dear God, amen. All right, you can have a seat. A couple of things. Well, obviously we pray like that because we come in all kinds of different ways, and we want to give space to lay that at the feet of Jesus and just spend that time with Him. That's one. Two, it's so great to see you. After last week, I just was in my house thinking about you, so it's awesome to see you all here. Last week we did it was a bigger message, and it was about the plan, like a change your life kind of plan. It's as close as I get to 7 steps or 5 steps or whatever those big bestsellers are. So if you want to check it out, it's a longer message, so check it out. We're on YouTube. That's where we live stream in the morning. If you can't get here or anything like that, that's where it is, and then they stay up there. So you can go back and check that out if you'd like. 2, the parking lot. First of all, Jim, will you put your hand up, please? Or stand up or come up here. You get to choose. Jim takes care of our parking lot. Now, I know that there's trouble with parking today. I know that, and I got to tell you, that's awesome. That's awesome. But have a little bit of grace with everybody getting out. We haven't done lines outside of the event. Maybe we should do those again. But the snow makes things tougher to park everywhere we are. So, and the other thing is, you'll see a little bit of ice in the middle, and that's because there's some kids who come here after a snow and they do some donuts in the middle of the parking lot. And I don't care. I don't care about that. We're never going to be a place that puts the chain over in front of the church. I don't think that's what a church should be for. So it's a parking lot that doesn't have poles in it. So let them have a good time. So that's my one thing. And 2, people use this place to like catch up for carpooling during the week and things like that, to stop and have lunch. So this is a space for them. So we're going to have that when it snows. I'm sorry. Everybody be really, really careful. We do the best we can, and Jim cleans that up for us out really well. So that's what we're doing. But be a little careful. You may be parked in today, and you'll have to stay. That's how that goes. Okay, and 3, everybody's sick. Everybody's sick. I didn't expect to see so many people today. Everybody's sick. You know a lot of people in your circles that are sick. Reach out to them, make sure they're okay, see if they need anything. And if you are the one that's sick, reach out. If you need anything, call me. I would love to help you. And so would everybody else here. We're part of this community, and that's what we do. Okay, we are going to get back into Titus this week. And if you remember what Titus is, it's Paul's letter to Titus, who in Crete, Titus is the guy that Paul left behind to help the church get into shape. And when you start a new church, you need some people in charge. You need elders. That's what he keeps saying over and over. And when people don't know how to play second base, you need to teach them how to play second base. So this is Paul telling Titus what's important when you're getting second baseman. Okay? So the last time that we talked about it, it was a list of good things. Like they need to be blameless. They need to be, and it's essentially develop your character. That's what we're looking for here. We're not looking necessarily for talent. We're not looking for special skills. We're looking for character and integrity. And these are the things that matter. Today, it's going to switch a little bit, because in that first one, it was this is what you're looking for. Today, it's going to change a little to, this is what you're not looking for. So, verse 7. Not overbearing, not quick-tempered, not given to drunkenness, not violent, not pursuing dishonest gain. And that's all we're going to get to today. So, we're going to just break this down. Not quick-tempered. And the word for that is or. You repeat after me. This is how we're going to do this. Orgilos. Orgilos. That's the word for quick-tempered. And what it means is prone to anger. You are prone to harboring resentment. It is you nurture some long-standing anger. It involves prejudice, it involves bitterness, and it is a propensity for irritability. Okay? And all these things start to run together when we do words like that. It refers more to a settled state of anger than a flash of occasional bad temper. The second that anybody brings up anger, you're like, oh man, I yelled at the... If anybody had trouble in a road rage incident just before they got here today, you think, oh no, that's a really big problem because I get mad. And then that's not what we're talking about here. Okay? Everybody gets mad. Okay? We get angry, that kind of thing. This is not that. Okay? Maybe anger is a thing that we need to talk about another time, but this is not that. Okay? This is a settled state of anger. It speaks of a person who has a constant simmering anger and who nourishes his anger against others. It is close to the idea of a bitter person. Do you know anyone like that? I do. Of course we do. Orgilos, when we go to these words, sometimes they can be kind of hard to understand. When I say things like that, the words kind of get a little jumbled. You start thinking about the words, and they're kind of hard to understand in Greek. They're kind of hard to understand in theory, but what happens is you have a picture in your head of someone who makes that real easy to understand. Okay? And we'll talk about that later. Okay? But first of all, the person you're thinking of, it's pretty hard to be around, right? Pretty hard to be around. That person who's just lit to pop all the time because they're just mad. They're looking to be offended. They're just bubbling all the time. Okay? So, we'll talk about the people that we're thinking of in a minute. But the question is, more important question is that us? Is that us? Are we those people? Are we those people who lose it and then go, what was that about? What was that? Or you feel, gosh, I'm just worked up. I'm angry. Like, are we talking about bitterness in our lives? Are we talking about prejudice? Are we talking about resentment? Would people say that we are prone to anger, prone to outbursts? Right? Contrast anger, bitterness, prejudice, resentment with the words for love like patience and other fruits of the Spirit like forgiveness, self-control. See how they're very, very, very different. When I was in middle school, all the boys would sit on this side and all the girls would sit on this side at the middle school dances. And they'd almost never mingle. You'd never see boys and girls together, except for the dance when all the guys would be like, go ask her out. And then you'd walk across the thing. And then you'd ask the girl out to dance with you. This is before that. The one side of the room is orgilos. The other side of the room is the fruits of the Spirit. Okay, just picture the middle school dance. There's nothing in it. Like, it's just over here. Okay? So, where does the quick temper and bitterness come from? First, fear. It's absolutely fear. And probably, if you trace everything back, everything comes from fear. We are afraid that we're not enough. We are insecure. We are inadequate. We are afraid we are being taken advantage. We are being taken from, cheated out of. We are disrespected. We are not given our just rewards by him or her or them. We are very, very afraid of being walked on. Right? And the other one is from a sense of unfulfillment. Like we're not getting the whatever it is that we deserve, right? And others are. It comes from a sense of lack. We are lacking something. And addictions like drugs and porn can lead to this kind of bubbling anger. Okay? We want them to give to us, to be the missing piece that fills us up. But they're not. They take. They leave the hole wider, deeper. They are always needing more, and it makes us very, very angry. Now, I just saw this morning. So I'm at the gym, and I was working out, and I'm watching TV while I do it. And I saw that kids that are on their smartphones a lot are much more angry than they were. The kids that are on a smartphone more often are more angry than others. And this makes complete sense when you think about this, because they're on social media. Social media, the point of social media is two things. You don't have what you need. You are not like everybody else who does have everything they need. And you're being left behind. Right? You're not enough. You're lacking. That's the point of social media. So, of course, and then there is the addictive part of the chemicals in our brains and things like that, that it's like an addiction. It's like any other addiction. So all of those things give to us and make us very, very afraid. They make us very angry. Okay? We're angry, we're unfulfilled, and it makes us angry. Okay? Now, of course, Jesus is the missing piece. Right? The gospel is designed to drive out that fear. You see, we don't need to be afraid anymore. We don't need to be afraid. We don't need to prove or defend our value when we're wearing the helmet of salvation. Right? See, the gospel meets us there in all of those places. It's really, really interesting. When I graduated from college, I had a marketing degree, marketing and advertising. And the thing about that was, the whole point of marketing and advertising is to show you you're not enough without my widget, is what everybody said often. We have a new widget that's going to make everything better for you. But the whole point of that is you need something. You're lacking something. And let me tell you what it is. And I think it's really, really funny that now I'm in the business of telling you, you have everything you need. Isn't that crazy? It's almost the exact opposite. Okay? Well, I guess it is the exact opposite. So that's what's happening here. The gospel says that whole thing about you, where you're poor in spirit, that whole lack, that whole I'm different, I'm a misfit, I don't fit, I don't belong, all of that stuff, Jesus says, no. There's a place for you here. All that stuff where you have to prove your worth, you already have it. You already are worth more than you can imagine. You are so valuable to me. I would send my son to die for you so that you can come to me. Right? And it's nothing that you have to do to earn that. That's the gospel of Jesus Christ, and that is the opposite of a settled state anger that is mad because we don't have everything we need. Right? You can kind of see that. Okay. So Jesus fills those holes and fills us. The holes that we feel so much when we're feeling unfulfilled. When we're feeling that thing like we need something else. We need the new model. We need the new laundry detergent or whatever. Next is violent. And violent is plague. Taste. Plague taste. Come on. I really like to do this. Come on. If we need to get up and jumping jacks or move seats or whatever, we will. Plague taste is the word. I just like to say the words. And you will too. So that's what we're going to do. Okay. The term plague taste is used in the New Testament to describe someone who's violent or a bully, particularly in the context of physical aggression. It conveys the idea of a person who's prone to striking others, either literally or metaphorically, and is often associated with a lack of self-control and propensity for conflict. The theologian Barclay says, the Greeks themselves widened the meaning of this word to include not only violence in action, but also violence in speech. there are lots of ways to hurt someone. Would you agree? There are lots of ways to be violent towards someone, to commit violence on someone. There's lots of ways to strike someone. Physical violence is very, very easy to see. Metaphorical violence, striking in speech or in all the passive-aggressive ways that we do those kinds of things. It might not be as obvious, but we know when it happens, and it hurts just as much, if not more. And the other part of that is we also know when we do it. So, if we have that propensity in us to be violent towards the people around us, we have to take a look at, we have to be a little bit self-aware in these things. So the last line, lack of self-control and propensity for conflict. Do we know those people who divide on purpose, who want conflict? There's entire industries in this country and in this world that's only purpose is to split us up. Okay? Who sow discord. You've been in communities where people work inside of it to cause a problem. That's kind of what gossip is about. And rumor spreading and things like that. Did you hear what they said? Oh, really? They're horrible. I know. I didn't say that. I just heard him saying it. Right? And then we have a problem there. Right? The space gets ugly and disrupted. This is a relational violence, I would suggest. I'm not really going to talk too much about physical violence, because physical violence, if we're committing physical violence on somebody else, that's a whole different thing. It's really, really easy to see, and I think then we need to get some help with that real quickly. And we need to be the kind of people that say, hey, that's enough. We need, if we stand by and watch it happen. Evil persists because good people stand by and let that happen, okay? So we're not even talking about that. We're talking the relational violence piece of this, because there are lots of people who say, oh, no, it wasn't that bad. Oh, I didn't do that. You're too sensitive. All of that. Blech. All of those excuses and rationalizations that we use to get out of it, okay? And in a faith that builds bridges, that brings people in and together, walls and division are absolutely counter to the mission of Christ. Picture Jesus Christ with his arms stretched out on the cross, sure, but also open wide for everyone to come into him, right? And we causing trouble inside of the church, which is everybody everywhere, not just this building, is keeping people away from that. This is not, these words that we're talking about is not the standing or behavior of a person of God or a person of faith. It wasn't then, and it isn't now. Violence, abuse, which is physical, verbal, emotional, or spiritual, is based in an overwhelming selfishness. It is a gospel of me. It is a gospel of only concerned with my wants and my desires, right? I am looking to inflict myself on you. That's what these are. It's ugly, right? When we put it like that, isn't it? I used to do that with the kids. When the kids would do something and they'd think something, and I'd say it back to them. And they go, sounds terrible when I say it, right? Oh, yeah. So that's what we're doing. I am inflicting myself on you. Now, this kind of arrogance may look like confidence, like great big unbridled confidence or superiority, like a rampant superiority. I'm better than you. It isn't. It isn't. I can't explain that enough. It is not. Again, it is the second, at least the second emotion. It is all based in fear. In fear, insecurity, and inadequacy. The bullies are the most afraid and most insecure all the time. All the time. And it's super, super sad. When you see people bullying other people and showing their machismo, or, I don't know how you would say that for a woman. What's a feminine? Feminachismo. That energy that puts other people down and says, I'm better, they're scared to death. And they have everything to prove. 100% of the time. It's the saddest thing. It's the saddest thing. I am afraid that I'm not enough. I am afraid that I am not loved and not lovable. So I'm trying to prove my strength and my worth by degrading and devaluing and hurting you. 100% of the time. 100. It is never because they actually think they're better than you. Never, ever, ever. All of these things also have nothing to do with the gospel of Jesus Christ. Where we are selfless, where we are loving, where we have servant hearts, because we are loved, because we are accepted, because we are enough, and we have no more to prove. Right? That's why you can... Have you ever had an argument with someone about, say who you're going to vote for? And at that point, you have a very, very respectful, kind exchange of ideas where nobody's mean to each other. There's no name call. That's because the people are deeply secure in themselves. They don't need to win everything because they are so loved and they are at peace with who they are. My wife has this amazing thing she does, and if I make you angry, if I have a misunderstanding with you, I'll think about it for a really long time and want to make sure that that's okay. She, every now and then there's a thing at her work, she'll come home and be like, yeah, there's this thing. And I go, oh my gosh, it has to be wearing you out. And she's like, well, no, I didn't do that. Because she's so peaceful in her lovedness by her Creator. She has peace. And it's awesome. And she also doesn't need to get that all over everybody. She doesn't need to get her opinions and her winning all over everybody. It's one of the coolest things about it. I'm not even looking at you. Angel Lee. There's no place for it here. There's no place for it inside of a church because there's no limit to the damage we can do in leadership through this kind of violence. You see that? What if I was violent to you? And then I would stand up here talking about Jesus and how wonderful and how peaceful and how loving he is. Could you imagine how much damage I could do with the amount? I don't know if any of you know me on a level where you've been honest with me, where you've been vulnerable and honest with me, and I would damage you. I would betray that trust and damage you. Think about how quickly we could empty a room, right? Anyway, last one more. Not greedy for money. He Shrock. This is a good long one. Dace. He Shrocker Dace. See, we're never going to say that. We're never going to say that. The term Ahi Shrocker Dace is used in the New Testament to describe a person who's motivated by shameful or dishonest gain. It characterizes individuals who prioritize personal profit over integrity, often at the expense of ethical or moral standards. Does anybody know any of them? The term is typically used in the context of leadership within the church, warning against those who might exploit their position for financial gain. And what I would say, or any other gain, right? I would suggest that this should not only say for money, and the Greek implies a for base gain. okay, for gain. This is exactly the issue in all of those awful cult documentaries I watch. Right? This is exactly what happens. The leaders exploit their position for personal gain. The leaders leverage their position, sometimes the scriptures, the same scriptures we're reading, and their power to take what is not theirs. And that comes out in all kinds of different ways. It's money, but it's also sex, it's trust, it's property, it's time, it's labor, and on and on and on. These words are greed, avarice, covetousness, and they are all characteristics of what we can call a love of money, which Paul wrote to Timothy. The love of money is the root of all, is a, or the, depending on your translation, root of all evil. Okay? Troy, it's okay, buddy. You don't have to leave. I'm just kidding. So here's what I want to do now. I'm never very comfortable with big pink elephants in the room. Okay? Have you ever been in those spaces where there's something on everybody's mind and nobody's saying it? I find that's how everybody stays sick. I find that's why marriages never get better, why relationships never tighten up, because we have a thing and nobody wants to talk about it. There are whole families built on, well, we don't talk about those things, right? So I don't believe in that ever. I believe that when we pull things into the light, that's how mold grows in the dark, right? So we pull all that stuff out and we look at it. So here's what I found while creating this message. And actually some future messages as well. And we're just going to talk about it today, unless you need to talk about it another time. And the other thing that we're going to talk about, I think that Paul and these writers of the Bible anticipated questions. And they anticipated problems that guys were having. Because you can see, like, if you start to ask questions about them, well, what does that mean? They're already answering that question. They're kind of acknowledging what's happening there and in their communities, so they can already hit those things. And the other part of it is, I think that the issues I have, and the issues that GC has, and the issues that Patrice has, are all pretty much the same. You know what I mean? Like, I've said this about marriages. This is a pretty long lead-in. When people get married, they have hearts in their eyes and everything's just wonderful. And then about 2 years in, they look at the person across the table and go, I can't stand their face. Okay? Now, that's true. And what happens is, at that point, those people go, oh my gosh, we're broken. It's over. I've fallen out of love. And there's only one way to go from here. We can be miserable for the rest of our lives, or we can have a divorce and see what we can do from there, okay? However, if they would come to me and say, I can't stand his face, I would go, yeah, of course you can. Sometimes I can't stand Angel's face either. It's surprising because it's perfect. But you can. And I would say to them, you're not broken. You're married. And then they would go, oh, okay, we're not broken. And I'm so glad that I talked about it because everything's okay now. I'm not always going to hate your face. I just do today. Okay? So all of these things happen. Okay? I know that was a bit of a long way. I find it really, really hard to study these lists and not think of some people. And not put flesh and blood on them. And as I was reading these words today, maybe you did the same. Maybe you had a person's face in mind. Maybe it was a politician. Maybe it was a boss that you had, a coach that you had, people in power, or other leaders. You can see their face. Okay? Now, I think that's a positive thing. I really think that's a positive thing at the first level because real life examples are amazing teaching tools. Like, let's just say something like this happens, the bullying, the anger, the prone to anger, happens to Elisha. And he says, this happened to me, and I would go, that's wrong, what they did, right? Notice how you feel when that person, when Michelle was mean to you and did this. And they would go, yes, it's horrible. And I would go, no, Jesus doesn't want that in his church. And it makes all of it click for you, right? It makes all of it click because it's flesh and blood. It clicked. You say, these are the consequences of actions like that and stuff like that. So now these lists don't seem so much like they're taking from you as they are helping set up this beautiful community, right? So, it may sound like I'm purposefully describing someone. And if you have a picture in your head, you could be thinking that I'm actually doing that. No, I'm not. I recognize that it could sound that way. I recognize all of that stuff. I'm not, and I think that would be an absolute betrayal of my calling and my place up here if I were to do something like that. And of you, a betrayal of you and your time. Okay, so I'm not, if that's what you're thinking. We are studying the Bible, and it's Paul's letter to Titus in particular. And we all know some of these characteristics today in our culture are not seen as sinful. Right? In a world and a culture that has different values, they are not seen as a problem. Some of these are actually seen as positives. It's the illusion of strength. Okay? When to Paul, to Moses, to Jesus, and on, they absolutely are. Okay? These are absolutely things that disqualify us from leadership. Okay? So 2 things about that. Matthew 7:1 says, do not judge or you will be judged. If you have a picture in your head of these words, you're thinking, I'm judging them. Okay? Now, it is a dangerous thing to presume to know the heart, the motivation, the level and depth of faith of another person. Would you agree? That is very, very dangerous. It can have a base in arrogance, pride, superiority, and that plays out in the way we decide who's in and who's out. Right? And you can see the danger in that. Right? So, we certainly can't decide and discern for another. Right? Those pictures you have in your head, you can't decide where those things are coming from, or if they're faithful people, or things like that, right? With me? Matthew 7:3, though, says, why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your neighbor's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? Now, that sounds a different kind of way. Other translations say, before you look at the speck in your neighbor's eye, look at the log in your own. And later on, Matthew 7:5 says, before you try and take, or first look at the log in your own eye before you look at the speck in your neighbor's, right? Maybe we can look at another person's. Maybe we can see another person's thing, as long as we are addressing the planks in our own eyes first. Okay? In fact, that might be exactly what we're called to do. That might be exactly what we're called to do. In fact, the Bible might lay out that we are to be our brother's keeper, to help each other through accountability and the responsibility to keep each other, quote from Philippians, hanging around our necks. Right? You think about me, you pray for me, You carry me around with you, just like I do with you. Maybe that, and when we see each other going down these paths of having a settled state anger, maybe it is our business to say, hey, that's not it. That's not the thing. Look at this in Titus. Maybe it is our call to hold each other to a higher standard because we've allowed the standard for morality and character to be underground, that we can't even see it anymore. And all that garbage we've decided is okay to live around. That, in fact, we kind of base our spot on these very things, but they're not called sin there. I don't know if you remember, a couple weeks ago we did the questions, and I said I'm going to cut a big part out of it. This is that part. Okay? It's on judgment. I have been afraid in my life, and probably you have as well, that if we reach out, our love and our input will be taken wrong. Has anybody ever thought that ever? Right. And maybe it will. Maybe it will. This is why relationship is so important in this. That's why sandwich boards on the street corner don't really affect too many people. But neighbors, people you're walking with, do. That is why they matter. But how it's taken isn't really for us to control at all. All that we can do is offer our love and release it up. Right? We don't save anyone. We are not the Holy Spirit Jr. Right? We are not that. But we do speak. We do carry each other. We do hold each other and teach each other in Him, in love. And the other part that's even more important is our avoidance of our condition. Our avoidance of the places where we miss the mark leave us all on our own to confront those areas that are damaging us. Right? We stay stuck in those places where we're violent to ourselves. We continue this violence to ourselves, and nobody ever tells us we're better than that. Right? And to not tell us we're better than that is kind of like that tacit, well, I guess you're not better than that. And that is 100% not true. It leaves us alone to find our own purpose, our own meaning, and that sounds like the exact opposite of church, doesn't it? If we don't love each other and walk together and get dirty pens and give the implication that we do have to live like that, if we don't love each other and walk together, we give the implication that we do have to live like that. Right? We do have to live in that abusive relationship. We do have to stay in that. It is what it is. And that's just all there is ever going to be. If we don't stand up and say no, okay? We give the impression that is all we're worth, that we're alone in our desperation. This is the time of year where everybody gets a seasonal affective depression, right? And everybody gets sad. I'm going to tell you. Now, depression's a real thing. Absolutely a real thing. But I'm going to tell you one of the things that can really, really, and I can tell you this because I have some experience with it. But the thing about it is, one of the best ways to alleviate some of that pain is other people. There's a Bible verse where Elijah is scared. The prophet Elijah is afraid for his life, and he's running, and he's in a cave, and God meets him there in a small whisper. And he says, "What are you doing here?" And Elijah says, "I'm the only one left. I might as well just kill myself." It's one of the saddest things in the Bible. And God says, He doesn't give him an answer. He doesn't tell him anything other than there's 7,000 people just like you down there in town. Go find them. That's it. That's it. To have people, that's the gift of the church. Okay? But if we don't do that, we lose the gift of the church. Right? So, that is, if you don't tell the abused person that this is wrong and they don't have to live like that, they think they do. Okay? And this, we don't have time for that. This is something we can no longer allow. It's scary. It can be taken wrong. It can be judgy, whatever. We don't have time for that anymore. Right? You're not judgmental. I'm not judgmental. We don't have to go to great lengths to prove it. You just are. Right? But the problem is to avoid loving you and avoid certain areas and subjects for the sake that maybe somebody won't like it or would take offense or call me some kind of name by creating and protecting my image, which I have no control over. No control over that. Right? That's not the kind of thing that we are called into. Right? That's myopic and that's pretty selfish. Spending time proving what we're not is wasteful, it's distancing, and it's keeping us from what we are. It's keeping us from our yes, which is loving you, loving me, loving everybody, and being the church. It's keeping us from what we are. It's keeping us from our call, which could be helping us all see that we don't have to live like that and feel like that and do it alone. That we can be loved by Jesus and we can come home. All of this matters when we start thinking about these things, the people that we have in our head. Okay? There's 3 points. Verses where Jesus calls people snakes, vipers, hypocrites, and there's a section called the woes, where he says, woe to you, you vipers. Right? That's always, always, always directed to the religious people. It's directed to us. And do you know, can you take a guess what he called those people outside of the church? Daughter. Friend. Interesting, isn't it? We can't expect those who don't follow Jesus to act like they do. Right? That is for judging not. Okay? We walk together with each other, we help each other, we sharpen each other without manipulation, without agenda, without control, without anger, without violence, with love. No matter what, I would suggest during these messages, when we're hearing them or when I'm writing them, when we think of another, and again, that's really, really important. It is important to notice the difference between light and dark. There's lots of people that would say, in the beginning, God created light and dark. The rest of it is teaching us how to tell the difference. Okay? So, but, okay, we do that. When we think of another, we do that. We look at it. Huh, that's right. That's right. And then we check our own planks. We check our own hearts. We examine our own motives, what this says about ourselves, and where we can and must grow. We develop a self-awareness, or soon enough, we become the very thing that's so distasteful. To wrap this all up. Violence, bitterness, greed, judgmentalism. Sometimes we choose to choose them in our culture. The American religion is not Christianity, it is money. It is money and it's sports and it's politics and it's business. There's nothing, I'm sorry to put it that way, but that's the truth, okay? And we sometimes looking at these characteristics as good sense or practical or whatever. And this is not the life Jesus gives. This is not the lifestyle that he calls us into. We are called to build his church, where we fall in love with him willingly, where we give ourselves to Him, and in His kingdom, these things, violence, bullying, greed, personal gain, are and present obstacles. They build walls between us, keeping everybody out. And as His bride, the church, which I would also remind us is everywhere, when everything is spiritual, it is everywhere. Right? As a Christian, this is everything. As a Christian, compartmentalization is a really messy thing to do that creates a lot of tension in us. We are called to be human wrecking balls. We are called to remove those obstacles that might get in the way of that loving relationship. We are called to love always and in all ways. That's it. That's it. So all of these things, and the reason that we had to address that elephant is because sometimes we get these pictures and we start to infer and we start to draw lines and we say, well, we can't really say anything about that because it's judgy. It's not necessarily. It can be. But all of these things are things that build walls and keep everybody else out. And all of these words, I probably say it every message on Titus, all of these words are designed to knock those down and get people into relationship with Jesus Christ. That's it. That's our job. That's the Great Commission. Amen.
Please stand as the song of love.
I have a future.
Everybody have a great week. Now what we do here is we gather around.